Next week, the Discovery Channel kicks off its 30th annual Shark Week. It's a time when the station dedicates its programming to the fish. It's also a reminder of the need to protect sharks. I'm joined now by Shiley Jory. She is a conservation biologist with San Diego State University. Welcome.
Thank you.
So millions of sharks are killed every year. Why is it important to save them?
So sharks are really important to marine ecosystems. They're important for top-down regulation. So for example, in coral reef ecosystems, sharks are important to maintain the lowermost level of small fish that eat algae. If we take away the sharks, these populations dwindle and then coral reefs are covered with algae, and that's what we don't want. And that's what's happening in a lot of places where there are no sharks anymore. They're also really important to maintain commercial seafood stocks that are important for human sustenance.
And some shark species have been labeled protected species. Has this helped with conservation efforts?
It has helped a little bit because it gives teeth to officials in case they find people in possession of these protected sharks, but the enforcement and policing is at a very low level. So there are still a lot of loopholes that are taken advantage of.
And can you tell us about this new non-invasive gene skimming technology that's being used to identify shark species after they've been killed and they were being sold in global markets?
Mm-hmm. So traditionally used methods require a lot of infrastructure to identify species. So if, say, we wanted to see if there are protected species in a lot of fins, it's very hard for most people to do, so they end up shipping it out. This technology depends on a handheld sequencer, in which you just put DNA and you connect it to a laptop computer, and you can start getting DNA sequences in real time. You then match these DNA sequences to a reference database, and that tells you what species it is. So it makes it much more streamlined and accessible to everybody.
And can you tell me how this device was how it was even determined that you could use this device for this reason?
Yeah, so this device is manufactured, it's called a MinION. It's manufactured by Oxford Nanopore Technologies, they were based in the UK. And they came up with this method precisely for field use for clinical purposes, for example, for detecting Ebola outbreaks. And we thought that this could really help field work in the field of conservation, and that's how we thought of giving it a try. And we also developed this method which requires very little prep compared to other methods, and combining that with this device makes it really feasible.
So how does identifying a shark species help protect the shark?
So using this method, if we detect somebody in possession of fins that are from the CITES protected species and that they're being exported, then that gives us teeth to implement laws that tell them they shouldn't be doing that and penalize them.
And also, in your study of the effects of contaminants, can you tell us, what pollutants would you say are the most harmful to marine species?
So plastics are at the top of the list, of course, but there are other pollutants there are persistent organic pollutants like PCBs and PBDs, which are released from industrial sites and urban areas, and that are actually really damaging to a lot of marine species, especially who are at the top of the food chain, because they end up accumulating a lot of these.
How crucial is it to increase conservation efforts for certain species of sharks?
It is very important to increase conservation efforts for sharks because they are at the top of the food chain. So if we don't conserve sharks and protect remaining populations, we are going to be struggling for our own seafood supplies. Also, sharks reproduce very slowly, they mature very slowly, and they produce very few young. So even if we take out a few individuals from a population, we are causing very long-term damage. And they are really sensitive to overfishing. So it's really important that we protect and conserve sharks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.